Hello, audience. This is my Info 303 major project for Unit 2. Is genre real? Kind of before I get started on this, I want to say that this is meant to be a podcast, kind of with this visual aid attached to it so that you, the listener, can be engaged, you know, fully both listening to my podcast and just kind of viewing it to see the structure of my ideas. Before I start, just because this is a major project, I wanted to go through an agenda. So I'm going to start with the reasons for why I created this project. Then I'm going to go to required text one that I used to explore these ideas. And I'm going to move on to my second required text. Then I'm going to, apply those ideas that I want to talk about to the music industry and examine two country songs. From there, I'm going to apply the ideas to the comedy scene, and I'm apply them to two movies, and I'm going to come with a conclusion on whether or not I think genre is real, and maybe some other ideas that we'll learn from this presentation. So, to start for reasons why I created this project and reasons why I wanted to kind of explore this idea of genres is I was just really intrigued after listening to the Switched on Pop Country at a Crossroads. It the most intrigued idea that I had was this exploring of how modern music is reworking music genre categories. And the main thing that they used to explore is this Lil Nas X Old Town Road, and basically the crux of their idea was just how, you know, modern music, just like everything else, is changing things, and we the listener, kind of need to be aware of that, and we kind of need to be very receptive to this change and understand that you know the older versions are the older what we have in our head about country or what we have in our head about any other genre like rock. That may be shifting, and we have to just be very open to that shift, and we have to understand that's going on. So I thought that was very interesting. Another reason why I created this project was just after looking at Kirby Ferguson, everything is a remix remastered. It was just interesting to me to see how modern works are just reimagining older works, and modern pieces are just keeping up with trends today and applying them to the older works. And that really kind of spoke to me, and I think that it fit into this genre conversation because not only are genres maybe being reworked, but maybe they're being just reimagined from the ground up. Maybe are the whole view, maybe there's been such a seismic shift that the new genre is going to look completely different than the old genre, and I'll get into this later on to the project, but that's how I kind of see in the movie comedy industry. So thereby, I want to take these ideas and apply them to other industries to see if you know how genres are being reworked or reimagined. And I guess to just explore that idea a little more, most importantly to me was just the comedy industry because I love comedy movies. It's how me and my dad bond, how me and my brothers bond. I just really think that there is major reimagining going on there. We'll get it. I don't want to spoil that too much. We'll get into that later on in the presentation. So to start, just the first required text that I use to explore genres is switched on pop country at a crossroads is Lil Nas X music country. So that was kind of the main idea. Lil Nas X is just kind of reworking the country music industry, and he's causing kind of a shift because people can't really decide if this is country or not. So one of the tools that they use to see if something's country or not is the Billboard Top 100. The Billboard Top 100 defines country music by examining the musical composition of the song, how the song is marketed, the history of the artist, and how many streams the song has. So I'm gonna be honest. When I first read this, I thought, "Dang, this is a very subjective criteria." You know, um, so I kind of thought, "Is this even what's properly should be used?" Because there's no really defined answer. And then another idea that I had is that what this doesn't take into account is that isn't genre moving and shifting every single day. So I think that this kind of required text introduce is genre real. I would say, First, it is, but it's just getting reworked and reimagined, and that this subjective criteria I think is okay to use if you have this idea that genres are always going to change and they're always going to adapt. So you can't have the same ideas. You can't have the same ideas about a genre of music 50 years later, and just hide behind the excuse, well, this is how we've always done something. I think or this is how we've always sorted the song into said category. I think that is very dangerous. To move on to my second required text used to explore genres, Kirby Ferguson's Everything is a Remix Remastered. It's just an idea of how everything is stolen from something else, and just, newer works or older works that are being reimagined. I think that's a very interesting piece. After reading this, I thought to myself about, how many things are stolen from others, how many, ideas are stolen from other ideas. And it really spoke to me. I think that another thing that I did is I went in a deep dive on Google of, in movies, because I love watching movies of, what is stolen from other things, or, where did artists get certain, where they find their inspiration through things. And it's just incredibly interesting how many, well, A, how smart these artists are, but secondly, how much they pull from just a wide variety of things. I think that this idea is also important because it can be applied to genre. I think that, you know, in this discussion, if this genre is real, which I've kind of stated already that I do think it's real, I think that, if we can reimagine old works, can we just reimagine genres and, kind of, you know, take maybe some of the core principles of things, but build back up into something new and something that's better and something that's more encompassing. So I think that the answer to that question is yes, we should, like, with these genres, is that we should be able to rework them and reimagine them. And, there's still something, there's still, it's still a comedy, but maybe the shape of a comedy movie is different than what we thought of 20, 30 years ago. So to move on to, and now to kind of move on to the actual analysis, the first instance where we will be examining this genre idea is in the music industry. We're going to see if genres are still being applied properly to the music industry or how they're being applied. And we're going to do this by exploring two songs that are both in the same category, and just see, if they're country music, or explore, how maybe they are or aren't. And then to also define this picture, I use the Billboard Top 100 just because I feel like that is just a fantastic list. That's where, most people go when they need to either A, find new music, B, find what's hot, or C, like, find a certain genre or category, which is what I used it for. So the two country songs that I will be, or country songs according to Billboard Top 100, and that I will be looking at is Old Town Road by Lil Nas X and Dan Pleshay, Justin Bieber, 10,000 Hours. So I'm going to play these both for you very quickly. Yeah, I'm gonna take my horse through the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. Gonna take my horse through the old town road. I'm gonna ride till I can't no more. I got the horses in the back. Horse stock is attached. That is mighty. So that was Old Town Road by Little Nas X. The next piece that I will be exploring is this, that we'll be sampling for you, is Dan Pleshay, 10,000 Hours. So that was 10,000 Hours by Justin Bieber and Dan Pleshay. So I'm going to cut both those songs off before they get stuck in your head. But then to just provide a little background before I kind of get into my analysis here, is that Lil Nas X. And both these songs are both top on the Billboard Top 100 list, both in country. Actually, Lil Nas X, I think, was actually on top for a while. I'd say that both these artists aren't, who we think of as traditional country people. Lil Nas X is more or less thought of as a rapper before this, and Justin Bieber is definitely known as a pop artist. Um, Lil Nas X, I guess his song is somewhat about country. 10,000 Hours is just more about a general topic, loving a girl. And I'd say the beats for both these songs are very different than traditional country. They're both fast. Old Town Road is definitely, a very poppy beat. And also, the song makes a lot of references to things that aren't country. And then 10,000 Hours is very fast and kind of a pop beat. So, when kind of exploring this and seeing if they fit into the country music genre, I'd say that I kind of preference this by saying that if you have a traditional view of country music, they probably don't. They probably both don't fit in there. But if you kind of have this new view, which I do have of genres and stuff, and if you, like I do, believe that genres are real and should continue to be used, I think that both these kind of fit into new country music and just how country music's being reworked. I think that country music, like everything else, is trying to keep up with the times. And what sells records right now is fast hits that, songs aren't too deep. Both these songs aren't too deep. Songs that you can kind of dance to. I feel comfortable dancing to both these songs. So I'd say that this is kind of just that new country, and I think that, it's not something that people should be up in arms about. I think that's just, it's very interesting. And this is kind of the trend where this is going, where, um, you know, not only are the songs becoming more upbeat, but also untraditional country artists can now break into the country scene. So I'll continue on where the second instance where we'll be examining genre is with the music, with the movie industry. I'm sorry, but yeah, so it's still if they're being applied properly. So I pulled two IMDb lists for you know my analysis. I pulled a list of best comedies from 2000 to 2010, and then from 2010 to 2019. So I pulled two comedies, and I pulled these two comedy lists because unlike country music where I feel like it's just being reworked, I feel like the comedy music movie scene is being reimagined. So just movies in the last 2 decades, you're gonna see a big shift. So the two movies that I picked to examine, I decided to examine Wedding Crashers and Deadpool 2. So I'm gonna read you the synopsis for both, starting with Wedding Crashers. Wedding Crashers is Jeremy and John are divorce mediators who spend their free time crashing weddings. For the irrepressible duo, there are few better ways to drink for free and bed vulnerable women. So once Secretary of Treasury William Cleary announces the wedding of his daughter, the pair make it their mission to crash the high profile event. But their game hits a bump in the road when John locks eyes with bridesmaid Claire. So that's a synopsis for Wedding Crashers. Deadpool 2 is wisecracking mercenary Deadpool meets Russell, an angry teenage mutant who lives at an orphanage. When Russell becomes the target of Cable, a genetically enhanced soldier from the future, Deadpool realizes that he'll need some help saving the boy from such a superior enemy. He soon joins forces with Bedlam, Shatterstar, Domino, and other powerful mutants to protect young Russell from Cable and his advanced weaponry. So, to kind of show you how comedies are being reimagined, Wedding Crashers was from that first decade of this century, so it was from 2005, and Deadpool was made in 2018. Deadpool 2 was actually the top comedy in the IMDb list for this current decade. So when you compare the two movies, Wedding Crashers and Deadpool, they couldn't be more different. Wedding Crashers is, not as high stakes. The plot's very surface level. It's just about guys crashing comedies. It's just a good laugh for 2 hours, and you're done with it. Whereas Deadpool 2, it's more about superheroes. Actually, if you look it up on most websites, it's listed as a superhero movie, an action, then a comedy last. It has a lot of action. It's got a whole kind of allure to the universe. You're going to leave the movie theater and think long and hard about this movie, and it's kind of a new age comedy. So again, I think that this kind of shows that the comedy genre is kind of being reimagined. I think traditionally you had these standalone comedies, and nowadays movie theaters are kind of or movie producers are kind of realizing that a you can just incorporate comedy into your other movie and kind of transform it and give it kind of the best of both worlds. So I think that it's just kind of very interesting to see this reimagining because you really haven't seen, especially in this decade, a real blockbuster comedy that that everyone has kind of been like, you have to see this movie. It's a standalone comedy. I mean, I'd say that everyone said you had to see Deadpool and people thought it was funny, but it's definitely not a standalone comedy. So I just think that this is kind of the reimagining that's going place, and it's just not limited to Deadpool. You see all the Avengers movies, good comedy in it. You know, shout out to Thor, but I think that honestly, it's just this is kind of where things are going in comedies. It's just getting worked in, and you're not going to see the standalone comedies. So I guess this kind of moves into my conclusion. So in conclusion, I don't think genres are fake. I've said this several times in this. I think that they are just being reworked and reimagined. I think that this falls in line with the most other pieces we've discussed in this unit, which explore how everything is based off an older piece and that everything is kind of being reworked, evolving. Um, and I think that, I've covered those things, but the major thing that I want to give a takeaway here is I don't think people should be afraid of this change. I think they should embrace it. I think that I touched on this at the beginning, but I think it's very dangerous to say, well, this isn't a comedy or this isn't a country music because this doesn't fit into our traditional definition or this doesn't fit into how we've traditionally done it. I think that's very dangerous. Just like everything else in this world, things are going to change. So you just got to be very receptive to that change and understand that, to kind of go along with it and have fun and know that things are going to constantly change. So that's kind of my thoughts on the matter. Now I'm going to leave you off. Here's my works cited page. And yeah, just have a great rest of your day. Thank you for listening to my presentation.